my name is Ashley Holland, and today I will be performing the Triumph of Vaccination over Smallpox, mankind's greatest scourge. Smallpox was always present, filling the churchyard with corpses, tormenting with constant fear all whom had not yet stricken, and leaving on those whose lives it spared the hideous traces of its power, turning the babe into a changeling at which the mother shuddered, and making the eyes and cheeks of the betrothed maiden objects of horror to the lover. These were the words of Lord Thomas Macaulay, an English historian, in 1848. Smallpox has been one of humankind's greatest scourges. 1 out of 3 of those infected would die. Survivors were often disfigured by scarring or even blinded. The speckled monster forced families to make frightful choices. Yet keeping the sick at home might destroy the entire family. Terrified, family members either ran away or put the sufferer out of the house. It struck the rich and the poor, noble and common, strong and weak. In 1562, I, Queen Elizabeth I of England, contracted smallpox. It was believed at the time that the color red could cure smallpox. I was confined in a red room, drank red juices, ate red foods, was wrapped in a red blanket, and even put next to a blazing fire. While I lived, it left me scarred and nearly bald. Only my makeup and wig covers the horrors. Eventually, people started to experiment with inoculation. Early inoculations were done by taking pus from a smallpox victim and directly inserting it into a healthy person through an incision. Hopefully, the inoculated person would only come down with a mild case of smallpox. Inoculation decreased the odds of death from 1 out of 3 to 1 out of 300. Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, the wife of Britain's ambassador to Constantinople, knew the speckled monster all too well. In 1715, smallpox killed her brother and left her scarred. She became interested in smallpox prevention by inoculation, which was being practiced at the time in Turkey. In April 1717, Lady Montagu sent a letter to her friend Sarah Criswell. Dear Sarah, I'm going to tell you a thing that will make you wish yourself here. The smallpox, so fatal and so general amongst us, is here entirely harmless. There's a set of old women who make it their business to perform the operation. They make parties for this purpose, and when they are met, the old woman comes with a nutshell full of the matter of the best sort of smallpox, and asks what vein you please have opened. She immediately rips up that you offer to her with a large needle, and she puts into the vein as much matter as can lie upon the head of the needle, and after that binds up the little wound. I am well satisfied with the safety of this experiment, since I intend to try on my dear little son. In 1720, after the Montagu family returned to England, smallpox struck London, killing hundreds of people each week. Lady Montagu had her 3-year-old daughter inoculated. As hoped, she came down with a mild case of smallpox, but survived. News spread, and before long, inoculation was the talk of the city. However, Princess Caroline, the wife of the future King George II, was skeptical and invited Lady Montagu to the royal palace to learn more about it. I, Princess Caroline, realize that inoculation can save people from smallpox, but I do not wish to put my daughter's lives in danger. First, I will ask the royal doctors to test this inoculation on those unimportant people, such as prisoners and orphans, before I use it on my own children. The princess did have her daughters inoculated, which led many of England's best people to do the same. That same year, a British ship arrived in the Boston harbor with a crew infected with smallpox. Disease spread quickly throughout the city. Reverend Cotton Mather had heard of smallpox inoculation from a slave, Onesimus, and asked the medical community of Boston to use this method. Only one doctor, Zabe D.L. Boylston, was brave enough to do so. There were many who opposed this radical method. One day, in November 1721, a bomb was sent through Cotton Mather's window. Attached to the explosive, which thankfully did not detonate, was the message, "Cotton Mather, you dog, damn you! I'll inoculate you with this, with a pox to you!" Cotton Mather and Dr. Boylston were undeterred, and eventually, Dr. Boylston was asked to inoculate family members of Boston's elite, including Abigail Adams and her children. Benjamin Franklin learned of the inoculation experiment between Mather and Boylston and was in favor of it. In his autobiography, he wrote, "In 1736, I lost one of my sons, a fine boy 4 years old, by the smallpox, taken in the common way. I long regretted bitterly, and still regret, that I had not given it to him by inoculation." During the American Revolution, General Washington required all soldiers in the Continental Army to be inoculated. Philadelphia became the center for inoculation in the colonies. However, inoculation was imperfect. Even though the risk of death was far less, the patient would still suffer the disease. Often, those who survived were still left scarred or even blind, but it was a chance that many were willing to take. In 1796, Edward Jenner, a British doctor from Gloucestershire, observed that milkmaids never seemed to get smallpox. He wondered if the exposure to cowpox somehow inoculated them against smallpox. He decided to test his theory. I chose a healthy boy, about 8 years old, for the purpose of inoculation for the cowpox. The matter was taken from a sore on the hand of a young dairymaid who had been infected by her master's cows, and was inserted on the 14th of May, 1796, into the arm of the boy through 2 superficial incisions, barely penetrating the cutis, each about half an inch long. 7 days after the inoculation, he complained of discomfort in the axilla, and on the 9th, he became a little chilly, lost his appetite, and had a slight headache. For the whole of this day, he was perceptibly indisposed, and spent that night with some degree of restlessness. The following day, he was perfectly well. In order to ascertain whether the boy, after feeling so slight an infection of the system from the cowpox virus, was now secure from the contagion of the smallpox, he was inoculated the 1st of July following the variolous matter. Several slight punctures and incisions were made on both arms, and the matter was carefully inserted, but no disease followed. Initially, Jenner's work was rejected by the Royal Society because there was not enough evidence. Jenner continued his research with many others, and in 1798 he published all his research in a pamphlet titled An Inquiry into the Causes and Effects of the Variolae Vaccinae, known by the name of the cowpox. Unfortunately, Jenner's work did not become as celebrated as he anticipated. Doctors who had grown rich from giving inoculations feared that vaccination would hurt their businesses. Others became fearful of the possible consequences of receiving material originating from cows. Opposing groups argued for and against vaccination. Anti-vaccinationists would argue, he's a liar, he's a fool, he's the devil's tool. The vaccine will turn you into a cow. You'll cough like a cow and grow cow hair all over your body. Cowpox! People actually believed that. This 1802 cartoon by James Gilroy demonstrates what the anti-vaccinationists thought of vaccination. Several people have tiny cows springing up on their skin. One person has a cow's face, and one woman is giving birth to a calf. Those who supported vaccination would counter, people eat steak, children drink cow's milk, and they do not turn into cows. Get vaccinated. You and your children shall never get smallpox. Vaccinate and live. Eventually, the medical community came to understand the benefits of vaccination. In 1804, Napoleon had his entire army vaccinated and awarded Jenner with a medal. In 1806, President Jefferson wrote a letter to Jenner. Medicine has never before produced any single improvement of such utility. You have erased from the calendar of mankind's afflictions one of its greatest scourges. Yours is the comfortable reflection that mankind shall never forget you have lived. Future nations will know by history only that the loathsome smallpox has existed, and by you has been extirpated. In 1967, the World Health Organization estimated that there was close to about 15 million cases of smallpox each year, and launched its campaign to eradicate smallpox worldwide. They traveled across the globe, entering isolated villages in Africa to vaccinate every person in the areas at risk. In 1980, the World Health Organization formally declared smallpox is dead. The most feared disease of all time had been eradicated. It has been estimated that the worldwide death toll from smallpox is between 300 to 500 million people. Today, smallpox only exists in laboratories in Russia and the United States. The eradication of smallpox is a triumph of international cooperation and of preventative medicine. Edward Jenner's triumph over this tragic disease led to the discovery of more vaccines that would prevent against diseases such as polio, yellow fever, measles, and even the common flu. However, during the time that Edward Jenner performed his research, many ethical, religious, and financial questions were raised about his work. Was it ethical to use human subjects in studies with potentially lethal consequences, or to use the underprivileged as Princess Caroline did? Recently, some scientists in China used CRISPR gene editing to alter an unborn baby's DNA so that it would be immune to AIDS. Many people believe that gene editing has the potential to cure many devastating diseases, while others are concerned about unknown consequences. Will these scientists be the Edward Jenners of our time? Will their work eventually be honored, or have they gone too far?
Wow.